All right, good day, everyone. Due to popular demand, I decided to make a short video for you to sort of give you an overview of what we have been talking about in environmental education. What are the objectives of this lesson? I want to ensure that you understand the key concepts, explore ethics, that is, what is right, what's what is right. Examine human impacts. I mean, what type of impact are we having on the environment, and what type of impact do we expect the environment to have on us? And then we want to be able to talk about sustainability. How is it that we manage the resources? We enjoy the planet, and yet we leave it in a state that it is it is still there for generations yet unborn. Generally speaking, those are the things that we will be exploring in this in this lecture. So what do we mean by what is environmental education? How do we define it? Environmental education is the process of creating awareness, of course, about environmental issues and equipping individuals with the knowledge, skills, attitudes, and values needed to solve these environmental issues. It goes beyond just learning facts. It involves understanding environmental systems, developing problem-solving skills, and encouraging responsible action. And of course, most of these topics were addressed in earlier, lectures. We talked about the environmental systems, the water cycle, you know, how rain gets to fall, the ecosystems, and so on and so forth. We also spoke about how to encourage responsible action. What are the things that we need to do? And it was at that time that we talked about things like recycling. We talked about thinking of how the products we use are produced and how they are disposed of, and that some of those factors, some of those things should also form the basis for actually purchasing those items, in such a way that it will get to a point where if only recyclable items and items that were produced in a way that is safe for the environment are purchased and are earning big bucks, then of course naturally the world will generally begin to move in the direction of a much more sustainable you know human activities as it relates to the environment. What are the core components of environmental education? One is to create awareness. The core components of environmental education. First thing is to create awareness. That is being conscious of environmental issues. Knowledge, understanding how the environment works. Developing concern, that is attitudes now. Because I don't want to go through what you have in previous, awareness, being conscious of environmental issues, of course. What are those issues? Pollution, uh, deforestation, loss of biodiversity, and what causes those things? Human migration, human urbanization, population growth, all that. Knowledge, understanding how the environment works. So how is it that rain is formed? How is it that um, animals and plants, living and non-living things, are interrelated? Then we have developing concern and care That is attitude. What kind of attitude do we have for the environment? For the environment. Skills, ability to solve environmental problems. What do we do? And participation, that is taking action to protect the environment. What are we doing? Are we planting trees? Are we going towards green energy? Are we beginning to look at our refrigerators, our air conditioners, to ensure that they conform, that they're environmentally friendly? When we go to the supermarket, do we know the sign that indicates that an item was produced in an environmentally friendly, you know, consciousness? So these are the core components of, environmental education. Why is it important for us to study environmental education? We talked in earlier classes, we talked about climate change. And it is important for us to know that environmental education is important because it helps combat climate change already. In some parts of the world, maybe more than we are experiencing it here in Nigeria, people are already suffering seriously. Flooding, typhoons, landslides, fire. In fact, I was watching it on CNN and people could see the fire approaching. The weather forecast was that the winds were getting stronger and they were still going to be in the same direction for the next 30 minutes. So people knew that their house was going to be burnt. Now they had been told about 2 or 3, 4 days earlier to evacuate, but I think some of them were still trying to see what was going to happen. Some were too old and too attached to their, houses to leave immediately, and they were watching until they were forcefully removed before the fire came and burnt up what was, what they left behind. So we need to understand. We need to understand the things that cause this climate change and be ready to combat it. Combat it. It helps to promote sustainable use of resources. How are we using it? Because it's the use of resources for our daily living that causes the things that cause climate change. So, it's learning about environmental education helps to promote sustainable use of resources, encourages behavior change. In Nigeria, issues like flooding, poor waste disposal, and air pollution make this even more relevant. You will see people burning. I was telling you, I think there was a class we held, a physical class, and we were talking about Ojota, and there was a day they were burning that refuse part of Ojota, and the whole place looked as if it was the end of the world. And so, why is it important for environmental education? The end result is that we expect that there should be a change in behavior, a relatively permanent change in behavior of people as regards the environment. That they begin to develop some care and love for the environment. That in times of making decisions, they begin to make decisions that combat climate change. Now, in some parts of Nigeria, we don't even know when is the rainy season, when is the harmattan, when is what, because things have changed so much, and it's all because of human activities, pollution, degradation, deforestation, and all of that, and the lack of, we're not taking action to stem, this trend. Okay, so what's the scope of environment education? The scope includes explain each video. Okay, um, where environmental education, where are the places we can find environmental, or where can we practice, or you know where can we find environmental, or where can we go and educate people about the environment? So we have the formal education setting, that means schools, normal schools, universities, primary school, secondary school, normal formal education schools, yes. Non-formal education, during workshops, NGOs can make publicity campaigns and the like, to inform uh, people about environmental issues. Informal education is through the media, family members, daily experiences. This shows that environmental education is not limited to classrooms. When we say the scope, the scope is something that indicates the boundaries. indicates the boundaries. And so, when you look at the boundaries, where can we have for environmental education? You can have it in schools, you can have it in from media, from family, from daily experiences, non-formal education from through workshops and NGOs. You know. Okay, environmental ethics definition. Okay, environmental ethics studies the moral relationship between humans and the environment. It asks questions such as, do humans have the right to exploit nature? Do plants and animals have rights? How is this? What is the correct way of treating plants and animals? What things do we need to do to ensure that plant life, animal life is kept, they are allowed to live their lives out in the proper way? And when we say the proper way, in a way that helps to sustain the environment, in a way that is environmentally friendly, a way that we do not begin to lose biodiversity. What do we mean by losing biodiversity? What we mean is that when we say the bio is diverse, I mean living things are of diverse nature. There's so many different types of them. And when some begin to go extinct because we have encroached on their natural habitat in such a way that they no longer have a place to live, or we have sent predators into their habitat in such a way in large numbers, in such a way that they are no longer able to survive. All those things are the things that we think and talk about when we talk about the right or wrong way, to treat the environment. What are the different perspectives, ethical perspectives from which the environment has been studied? Now, there are three main perspectives, and I know that I think if my memory serves me right, I know that we mentioned this. Anthropocentrism is humans is the position, is the perspective that believes that humans are the most important. So anything that the human wants, it can do. It doesn't. Everything is for the human. As long as it keeps the human alive and happy and well, there's no need to consider any other thing. The second one is biocentrism. This is the perspective that all living things have value. All living things have value. That no, there's nothing you can't say is the only the human being that the animal is not important or not. That no, that all living things have value. And then we have ecocentrism. That is that the entire ecosystems are important, and it is important that we all acknowledge the fact that the entire ecosystem is important because everything is dependent, everything is interdependent. And then what are the things that, when we have studied ethics and we have looked at ethics from the different aspects, what's the point? The point is so that we can make proper, good, data driven policy decisions. They This type of considerations, perspectives, they influence conservation efforts, and of course they form and influence daily behavior. And of course we talked about those daily behaviors before. Conservation efforts, of course, we know that there's a need to plant more trees, for instance. There's a need for proper waste disposal. There's a need for sustainable deforestation, planting trees. So these are policies and conservation efforts and changing behavior that occur as a result of the different thinking of the different perspectives of ethics in environmental education. What is the role of formal education? What is the role of formal education? Formal education promotes environmental awareness through curriculum content, that is, it is inside the curriculum, we teach it in the classroom. Classroom teaching and school projects, those are the ways that teachers will play a role in shaping activity. That's the way you bring in uh, environmental education. You bring it into the classroom, by putting it inside the curriculum as a subject area. You teach it in the classroom, and you organize school projects. Tree planting projects, waste disposal projects. And all sorts of projects that help. Recycling projects, or a visit could also be a visit to a nearby recycling plant to let the students be conscious and aware of these environmental issues and how and some of the solutions that have been that are in place to solve them. What is the role of informal education in this thing? Role of media, like I said before, is media, community program, family influence, and co. Uh, the role is just is mainly to bring awareness and change behavior. Family influence is just to make people aware of environmental issues. Then, when they are aware of environmental issues, they should have knowledge of how the environment works, so that they can know which part of the chain or interconnectedness are they affecting by their actions or inactions. And of course, so you can use the media, community programs, and family influence to, you know, to inform people, to keep them aware of environmental issues. Human activities. What are the human activities that affect the environment? Major human activities affecting the environment include industrialization. I know majority of us have seen major industries, and when you see industries, you see the type of generators they use, or some of their plants, and the type of smoke that comes out of those plants when they put down the generator and co. The serious, hazards to the environment, air pollution. Apart from that, our industries are generating the type of waste that none of us can begin to imagine. Some of the waste that are being generated are very dangerous. Some of them are radioactive waste that require specialized modes of, disposal. Uh, Even medical wastes, all sorts of waste are produced by industrialization, urbanization. More people are moving into the city. We are generating different types of waste, plastic waste, iron, metal, the can of our Coke and Fanta, all sorts of these things. And as we are urbanizing and everybody is putting on their generator, most people are driving cars. There is a lot of emissions into the air. And unfortunately for us in Nigeria, we don't have a strong control of the emissions of our vehicles. Most of us don't even we have never known what the emission level, whether there's an emission level or there's no emission or anything. Whereas in other parts of the world, emission levels are calculated, they are known, there's a threshold, that is, your emission must not be above a certain level, and so many restrictions. But how can we do all those restrictions, all those restrictions, when we are buying the cars that people have bought and used for over 20 years? So, what are the other activities that affect the environment? We have agriculture. Agriculture is also, one of the human activities that the environment. Of course, when we plant a certain crop, we all understand that it will deplete the soil of certain uh, chemicals or certain nutrients. And what we were taught back in the day when we were learning agriculture was that there should be some form of rotation planting and all that. But the large scale agriculture that is going on today does not, it does not allow for that type of rotation, crop rotation. They now depend heavily on fertilizers. Some of these fertilizers are also, some of them are somewhat, environmentally friendly. However, there are some that are dangerous to the environment. And yet, because of overpopulation, urbanization, industrialization, we cannot but use those type of products to make sure that our crops come out very well. What are the different types of pollution that we have? There are three major types. We have air pollution, vehicle emissions, for example. We have water pollution, oil spills, waste dumping, and so on and so forth. When it rains and the gutter is flowing in some of our areas, I'm sorry to say this, people will bring out their uh, waste and pour it inside the gutter because the water is flowing. Land pollution, of course, refuse disposal. Some of the ways that our land can be polluted. Uh, you know, we also have a lot of areas. We still have what we call wole wole for those of us. I'm sorry for those the non-Yoruba speaking members of this group. Wole wole are people who go around to check whether a house has the proper septic tank or the proper sock away facilities to remove waste, and you can rest assured that they find a lot of big buildings that do not have either, where the occupants of those buildings end up. I mean, I don't want to begin to discuss how they dispose of their waste, but let us just you know take it that these modes of waste disposal are not healthy, are not good for the environment. Deforestation and climate change. What are the causes, effects, and global impacts? Deforestation leads to loss of biodiversity, and that's not so difficult to understand. The forests house a lot of animals, different type of life forms, from insects to plants to birds to animals like monkeys and co that live on the trees, the ones that live on the land. So many. And when you just cut off the trees without planting any form of this thing, it exposes the soil. And when the soil is exposed, the animals that are hiding under all the foliage and co, you are destroying their habitat in essence. And when you do that, of course, some of those animals will move to other places where their predators are more. Before you know it, they have been killed to a point where they are going extinct. Sometimes it's even human encroachment into their spaces that causes them to move, or you start having clashes. I know that there are so many places in certain parts of the world where the human population have moved so close to the forest, and they are gradually depleting the forest in such a way that lions, elephants especially, and co are now moving into the areas to eat their food in the evening, or to even attack people during the day. So it is, you know those are some of the impacts of uh, deforestation and climate change. Deforestation leads to loss of diversity, increased carbon dioxide. Climate change, trees are the ones that are supposed to absorb carbon dioxide, so cutting them worsens global warming. The natural way of the world that it uses to change the different maintain temperature and all that is disrupted when we cut too many trees and we do not plant any. Impacts on society, of course, when we have the effects of climate change before us or amongst us, we have health issues, respiratory diseases. Most of the respiratory diseases we have are probably as a result of the high levels of uncontrolled emissions that we inhale. When we go to the villages, when we go to certain parts, I was in Badagry some years ago, and the first thing I felt when I got to Badagry was the fact that the air seemed cleaner. It was not as heavy. When I go to Plateau State, where I have family, the air is cleaner. Of course, there are also parts of places that are warmer, cold at certain times of the year, but the air is generally cleaner. Unlike Lagos, where you smoke, the emissions are too much. When that happens, of course, you spend more on medical bills. There is economic loss. when there is flooding and it is washing people's houses away. When there is flooding, even a flood, a flooded road that causes traffic is causing economic loss because people are going to spend many more hours in that on that road. A 1 hour, a 30-minute journey, a 15-minute journey becomes an hour. So they're losing is an economic loss. And of course, we already discussed what the loss of biodiversity is. What are the ways of mitigating some of these problems? The solutions include afforestation, that is planting trees, as simple as that. Another mitigating strategy is renewable energy, that is going solar, using wind, using solar. I haven't seen the wind type of windmills and co so much here in Nigeria, but I've seen quite a lot of people are now beginning to adopt solar. Of course, the solar has its own drawbacks, but it is a cleaner, source of energy. Waste management, yes, proper waste management strategies such as recycling, and people countries have developed some very lovely recycling plants that even begin to, as they are recycling, they're generating power on the one hand, and they're recycling the item into another good usable material, and it's like a win-win situation for everybody. So these are some of the mitigation strategies that are available for people to use, and that we expect you, as teachers of environmental education, to teach your students to be aware of. Okay, so what are the three pillars of sustainable development? It means meeting present needs without affecting future generations. It means that as you are chopping today, you don't chop everything in such a way that future generations cannot see anything to nibble on. Now that was just a very good example, but the idea is that the earth does not become so hot. We have not cut all the trees. The flood is not so much that people cannot find anywhere to live again. So, and the idea is that it balances economic growth with social development and environmental protection. That is, there must be some level of environmental protection within the social development that is taking place, and we need to find a way to ensure that these strategies, mitigating strategies, our decisions and co, all uh, ensure some level of economic growth. Principles. What are the principles of sustainability? The principles of sustainability are simply equity, efficiency, and responsibility. Equity means, of course, fairness. Efficiency is that it does not cost too much to achieve. It's efficient. There's no waste, and responsibility means that, of course, as we are, making use and enjoying the environment, we are protecting it for future generations. We are protecting it for future generations. So again, the principles of sustainability are equity, fairness, efficiency, wise resource utilization, and responsibility, that is protecting the future, ensuring that we leave the environment in such a way that future generations will still be able to enjoy the earth. And how do we ensure that the education that we're giving is for sustainability? It involves integrating sustainability into teaching, using project-based learning, because it has been discovered that students learn better when they are involved in projects that related to the environment. And so project-based learning, school initiatives, and so are some of the ways that we can educate the young ones for sustainability. So what are the key takeaways for this class? One, your environment needs protection. We all need to put our hands together, create the awareness, make sure that attitudes change, that behavior change, and that we equip our students with the skills to solve environmental issues. Sustainability is the key. If we want to continue to survive on this earth, we have to make the right decisions for the environment. Thank you very much for listening. I wish you the very best going forward. Good evening, everybody.